All right, welcome back, guys. So in this section, let's talk about the loop best practices. So how do you use loop the best way? And moreover, I think I'm really feeling good. All right, I just finished I just finished listening to Asake Work of Art full album. Like it just made my spirit so cool, and so I think you should be doing that. Try to be in a good mood before you even start taking your classes, right? It will actually help relax your body. So anything that can help you do that. So for me, music does that for me. So now back to the business of the day. So how best do you use loop? Okay, because we have seen the last time we did nested loops, we saw something that we shouldn't be using and how to use it and how not to use it. So whenever you're using loop, so how best do you use it? And these are the small things that separate you from others. These are the things that make you a pro. How do you write your programs to be more maintainable, more performant, efficient? How do you write programs like this? How do you write programs that are very secure and stuff like that? This is the things that separate you from others. So, and that's what we are teaching you here. So grab it and pay close attention as we discuss this, okay? So looping is an essential programming construct used to iterate over collections, perform repetitive tasks, and handle data in JavaScript. So that basically we use loops to iterate over collections. Let's say we have a list of something, we have a collection of something. We use loop to iterate all over them one by one. We use loops to perform repetitive tasks. If you have a task, a particular instruction or set of instructions that you want to repeat over time, repeat over and over again, you use loop. Okay, and we also use it to handle data in JavaScript. So loop is very, very essential. While loops are very powerful, but improper usage can lead to inefficient, error-prone, or unreadable code. While loops are powerful, yes, we know that loops are very powerful, but the inappropriate use of it can lead to inefficient, error-prone, and unreadable code. So be careful, and that is what this session is all about, how best to use loops, okay? Loop best practices in JavaScript. It outlines the strategies to write optimized, clear, and maintainable loops. Optimized means that it is efficient, it is not taking too much of it's not taking too much time to run, and it's not consuming too much memory. It is clear, easy to read, it is maintainable. Okay, so all these things really make you write good programs using loops. This includes choosing the right type of loop. Am I supposed to use for loop, while loop, or for off loop, etc.? What I have a particular program I want to write, I have a particular task I want to execute. Which loop is the best option? So we have to choose right. We have to also leveraging modern array methods like map, filter. Then when we talk about arrays, we're going to talk about some methods that in arrays that use loop actually. So when we talk about them, we're going to talk about them extensively, each of the methods one by one, okay? So avoiding performance pitfalls such as unnecessary recalculations or nested loops and handling asynchronous operations safely within loops. So these are the things we're going to be looking at here. So by adhering to these best practices, developers can improve code quality. In short, if I want to work with anybody now or I want to employ anybody now, if I see your code, all right, sure, basically it's not that I am a developer, I'm this, I'm that one. I just want to see your code. Because if I see your code, if I cannot read your code, I cannot work with you. If your code doesn't seem readable, if it doesn't seem maintainable, I can't work with you, because for you to work in a team, you also have to write code that other people could also understand. All right. So if I see your code, you don't take into account the quality of your code, the readability of your code, the maintainability of your code, the performance of your code, I wouldn't work with you. Okay. So writing good code would actually help you get bigger jobs. It will make it easier for you to get jobs. So make it a habit of writing good code. All right. It enhances performance and also reduces bugs in JavaScript applications. So when you understand all these things, you're going to write better programs. So the first one is choosing the right loop. For loops are best from when you know the exact number of iteration. If you know that you're going to iterate, you have 10 iterations to run, use for loops. If you know that you have 100 iterations to run, use for. When you know the number of iterations, when you're very sure, okay, I'm going to repeat this task for a certain number of time, use for loop. So for loops are best used when you know the number of iterations, okay? While loops are used when the number of iterations isn't known beforehand. So you don't really know how many times am I going to run this thing. So how many times am I going to tell the user to enter their password? How many times am I going to tell them to enter their password or enter their username, whether correct or not correct? How many times? So when you do not know, you actually use while loop or do while loop, depending on how you want to use it. So when you do not know the exact number of iterations beforehand, you use while loop. For off loop, we haven't seen it. All right, but don't worry, we'll talk about all these things in as much as we haven't seen it. So, but we'll take a look at them when we talk about arrays. All right, there are special loops used for arrays. That's why we did not mention them in this chapter, but we'll talk about them when we talk about arrays. So for off loops are best iterating. They are best for iterating through iterable objects like arrays. So whenever you have an array and you want to iterate through array, all right, you use the for off loop. For off, for in, all right, we have them. So we also have for in. So use for in are used for iterating over object properties, but should not generally be avoided. But should generally be avoided for arrays due to performance and unexpected key traversal. So now, I don't know how I can explain this for you now because we haven't talked about arrays. Okay, so but the thing is this, for off loop, all right, when you say for this of this, okay, I don't know, let me give you an example, or let me leave it. When we talk about arrays, we talk about them, okay? So just understand that we use for off best for iterating through objects like arrays or strings. We use for in for iterating over object properties. When you want to iterate over object properties, you can use for in. When you want to iterate over the objects itself, you use the for off, okay? So avoid mutating arrays during iteration. Whenever you are looping through or iterating through an array, do not mutate them. What it means is that do not make changes to those arrays in your code. Whenever you're running a loop and you're iterating through arrays, do not mutate, do not mutate them, do not change their values, okay? Mutating an array while iterating over it can lead to unexpected behavior. Instead, use methods like filter, map, reduce for immutability. Okay, so now basically what this thing is saying is this: just like we would always tell you, do not use var to create variables. Always use let or constant keyword. Don't use var. The thing is this: you don't care about, you don't need to understand why. Don't just use them. All right, use let and constant keyword. That's what professionals are telling you. Do not use the normal for loop, all right, for arrays. Use things like map, filter, reduce. Use these methods. Instead of using for loop, don't use for loops for arrays, okay? Don't use for loops for arrays, okay? Don't use them. Use methods like filter, map, reduce. We will talk about them, but whenever we talk about it, we're going to talk about all these functions, okay? All these methods. So don't use, don't mutate arrays while you're iterating over them, and do not use for loop. In short, use map, filter, all these methods that have been provided in arrays. So the third one is use array iteration methods. You say it, I was just saying it now, and look at it here. Whenever you want to work with arrays, use array methods. All right, there are a lot of array methods that you can use them. Do not, whenever possible, prefer array iteration methods like the for each, map, filter, reduce, and sum for clarity and functional programming style. Whenever you're working with arrays, make it a habit that you're only going to use those methods that have been provided for arrays. They are there. So when we talk about arrays, we'll talk about all of them. Optimize your array length in for loops. So in case you're using for loops, sometimes you might not have any other option than to use for loop to loop through arrays. Don't avoid recalculating the array's length on each iteration in a for loop. This is an example here. If you look, I don't need to even do practical or write code because I have talked about this thing extensively. So if you do not understand whatever we are saying here, that means you need to go back to the previous sessions. Or you can chat me up, actually. Chat me up, hit the chat button and let's talk, okay? So now, look at this code, all right? Whenever we get back to checking is because now, after every iteration, we will come and check if I is less than what this expression will be evaluated. And it means that every time we are checking the array length, every time, for every iteration, we are checking the array length. This is bad. It is inefficient. Don't write your code this way. What you do is you write your code like this. You could actually get this array length somewhere else. Either you do it this way inside of this initialization, okay, because this is the initialization part of your for loop, remember. All right, you can do it here, or you can do this length equals to array length outside. Do you understand it? So you can actually do it outside, or you can do it here, so that not every iteration this array.length would be checked. It's not performant. Okay, it is very, very inefficient. It's not optimized. Okay, so avoid recalculating the array's length on each iteration. If you do it the first way, this would, every time we come here, it will recalculate. It will calculate it every time the iteration comes here. So do not do that. Okay, always get the array length outside of it in case you're using for loop. Either you do it in the initialization part or you do it outside of it. Okay, if you don't know how to do this, chat me up, let's talk. Okay, but I think this is just simple. That's why I'm not going further to explain it, because we already know what iterations are. We already know that these things are always evaluated. We already know all these things. Okay, so break early when possible. If a condition is met, exit the loop early using break to save unnecessary iteration. We have talked about loop statements. All right, we talked about them. So let's say you have something very large that you're doing. Whenever you get a target or whenever a condition is met, break out of it as soon as possible, as early as possible. All right, use break keywords to break out of the loop as soon as possible, as early as possible. Okay, use the continue to skip unnecessary iterations. There could be some conditions where you don't just want to loop. You have a list of something, but you don't want to loop through all of them. You can use the continue. All right, depending on your logic. I don't know what your logic could be, but we have taught you this thing, so you understand why we use the continue statement. All right, so for some reasons, let's say you have an array of numbers, and maybe one of them, instead of looping through null values, once you get to any value that is null, you can continue. You can skip to the next iteration. So use continue to skip unnecessary iterations. All right. Avoid nested loops if possible. Nested loops can degrade performance. You saw it in the last session when we talked about nested loops, and you saw me rewriting a particular program without using nested loop, and we got a better program. Okay. So we got a better program rewriting that program. So this is very bad. Okay. Look at this code. By now, you should be able to be reading code. I expect you to be able to be reading code. Once you see this code, you know what this code is doing. I expect you to be reading code. So read this code. Now you can see, in as much as we have not done the for each method on arrays, but here they are saying, do not use for loops on arrays. Use the for each. All right. Some of these methods are more optimized. It has been done by the creators of JavaScript, and they have optimized them for your use. So use them. Instead of using for loop like this, use the for each loop. All right, we'll talk about it when we talk about arrays. In as much as we have not talked about asynchronous programming, where when you handle asynchronous loops you always handle them with care. When dealing with asynchronous tasks in loops, use async or await carefully. This is very bad because this will not wait. For both people, I don't expect you to know this. I don't expect you to understand this, but no problem. All right. We'll talk about asynchronous programming in the JavaScript mastery, not in this course. It is more advanced. Okay. So in case you're using asynchronous programming like this, asynchronous constructs like this, always use the await keyword. All right, always use your async and await keyword. Don't bother if you don't understand this, okay? It is beyond you right now. Avoid using var in loops. Oh my God. All right, avoid using var in anything at all. Okay, use let or constant for block scoping to avoid unexpected bugs. Now look at this. If we run this code, this is the output of this code, which is not what we expected. But if you now use let to create your variable I, you get the expected result. But here, for some reasons that I cannot even explain myself, when I saw this code, I was trying to get it, but for some reasons, now if you would want us to, if you want us to discuss now, I want you guys to remind me of this, okay? While watching this, taking this class, if you want us to discuss why is this first code not giving us the right result and the second one is giving us the right result, I want us to discuss it in our WhatsApp group. Okay, if you want us to talk about it, let us discuss it in our WhatsApp group. We can set up a meeting and we'll just discuss it. So this is one way we can talk about something in the WhatsApp group. So raise the topic. Let us discuss it in the WhatsApp group. Then I can explain. Okay, this is a very good, that is what I can be doing, because some of you in the WhatsApp group are not even doing anything. No, you're just making the whole group look as if it is idle. So if anybody wants us to discuss, right now, I'm not going to explain why this is a problem and this is not a problem, okay? But if you want us to discuss it, chat me up, raise the topic in the WhatsApp group and we'll discuss it, okay? All right, so use modern syntax for clean code. Leverage on EFC syntax like the for-of array methods to make loops more concise and readable, okay? Yeah, we are using the for-of. Don't worry, we'll talk about it when we talk about arrays, okay? So benchmark for performance. For performance critical code, test your loops efficiency, especially when processing large data sets, okay? So thank you very much. This is where we end this session. It's just a very short session, more of theory. But the thing is this, everything that we have seen here, I want you to practice it. And whenever you're practicing it and you didn't get it, hit me up, chat me up, raise the topic in the group. Whenever you're doing something and you do not understand it, raise the topic in the group. Let us discuss it in the group. That is why we are in the group, okay? Yes, this is what I will be doing. I think I'll be hiding some information, all right? I will not be explaining too much anymore. And if you want us to discuss anything, hit us in the WhatsApp group. Let us discuss it, okay? Thank you very much, and I'll see you guys in the next session.